There is a building in America that is so large, so advanced, and so far ahead of anything else on the planet that engineers from other countries visit it and leave speechless. It is not a skyscraper, it is not a stadium, it is a factory. But calling it a factory is like calling the ocean a puddle. Inside this building, robots and humans work side by side to build the future of transportation. And every single hour, a finished vehicle rolls off the line and drives away into the world. The scale is so hard to believe that people who see it in person often say the same thing. The rest of the planet is 100 years behind this. If you are enjoying videos like this, please hit the like button because it takes a lot of effort to make these, and subscribe so you do not miss the next one. What you are about to see is not science fiction. It is real, it is operating right now, and it is changing the way the entire world thinks about what is possible. But to understand why this one building matters so much, you first need to see what America built before it, and how each project pushed the limits just a little further. When the desert met the river. In 1931, America was in the middle of the worst economic crisis in its history. Millions of people had lost their jobs. Banks were closing. And in the middle of all that, the United States government made a decision that sounded completely insane. They decided to tame a river. The Colorado River was one of the most powerful rivers in North America. Every spring, it would flood across the Southwest, destroying farms and washing away homes. Every summer, it would dry up, leaving nothing but cracked mud. Nobody had ever managed to control it. But the government decided they were going to try, and they were going to do it in the middle of a desert where temperatures regularly climbed above 120 degrees. The project was called the Hoover Dam. The plan was to build a concrete wall 726 feet tall, wedged between two canyon walls on the border of Nevada and Arizona. That is taller than a 60-story building. The wall would hold back so much water that it would create the largest man-made lake in the United States, a reservoir called Lake Mead. Here is what makes this project so remarkable. There were no computers, there were no modern cranes, there were no GPS systems or laser-guided tools. The workers used pickaxes, shovels, and their bare hands. More than 21,000 people worked on the dam, and they worked in conditions that are hard to imagine today. The temperature in the canyon would hit 120 degrees. Workers would pass out from heat exhaustion, and yet they kept going. The concrete was poured in blocks, one at a time, and each block had to cool for weeks before the next one could be added. If they had poured it all at once, the heat from the curing concrete would have taken 125 years to dissipate. So engineers ran cold water through pipes inside the concrete to speed up cooling. It was a solution nobody had ever tried before, and it worked. The dam was finished in 1936, 2 years ahead of schedule. They built one of the largest concrete structures on Earth in the middle of a desert, without modern technology, and they finished it early. More than 90 years later, the Hoover Dam is still standing, still generating electricity, and still supplying water to cities across the Southwest. Las Vegas would not exist without it. Los Angeles would not have grown the way it did without it. What most people do not realize is that this dam was just the beginning of a pattern. America has been building things decades ahead of the rest of the world for a very long time, and each project pushed the boundary a little further. Somewhere in Texas, that pattern was about to reach a level that would make the entire planet feel like it was living in a different century. But first, America had to conquer something even wilder than a river. A bridge that dives under the sea. If you look at a map of Virginia, you will notice something strange. The eastern shore of the state is separated from the mainland by a massive body of water called the Chesapeake Bay. For hundreds of years, people who lived on the eastern shore had to take a ferry to get to the other side. The ferry took hours. As cars became more common in the 20th century, the wait could stretch to 5 or 6 hours, with lines of vehicles backed up for miles. So the state of Virginia decided to build a bridge. But they had a problem. The Chesapeake Bay is not just wide, it is one of the busiest shipping channels on the East Coast. Massive cargo ships and Navy vessels pass through the bay every single day. If you build a bridge low enough for cars to drive across, the ships cannot get through. If you build a bridge high enough for ships to pass underneath, the slope would be so steep that cars could not safely drive up and down it. The solution they came up with was something nobody had ever tried at this scale before. They would build a bridge that was also a tunnel. The structure would stretch 23 miles across the bay. For most of that distance, it would be a regular bridge sitting above the water on concrete pillars. But at 2 specific points, the bridge would dive straight down into the water, go under the bay floor, and come back up on the other side. Cars would drive down into a tunnel, travel underwater while ships sailed above them, and then climb back up onto the bridge again. When you see it from the air, it looks like the bridge simply disappears into the ocean and then reappears a mile later. It looks like something out of a science fiction movie. But it has been working since 1964. The engineering behind it was extraordinary. Each tunnel section was built on land, floated out into the bay on barges, and then sunk into a trench that had been dug into the bay floor. Once the sections were in place, they were connected and sealed so tightly that not a drop of water could get inside. The result was a waterproof tunnel sitting at the bottom of one of the busiest waterways in America, with thousands of cars driving through it every day and massive ships passing right over their heads. The Chesapeake Bay Bridge-Tunnel was named one of the 7 modern wonders of civil engineering. There is nothing else like it anywhere in the world, and it has been operating for 60 years. This is exactly what people mean when they say, the world is 100 years behind American construction. While other countries were building ordinary bridges, America built something that did not even have a category. That gap was only going to grow wider, and what came next would prove it in a way no one expected, by attempting to build an entire living planet from scratch. Building a planet inside a glass box. In the early 1990s, a group of scientists and engineers in Arizona asked a question that sounded like it came from a science fiction novel. Could you build a miniature version of Earth inside a glass building? Could you create an ocean, a rainforest, a desert, and a grassland, all inside a sealed structure? And could human beings live inside it for years without anything coming in or going out? They decided to find out. The project was called Biosphere 2, and it was built in the desert outside of Tucson, Arizona. The structure covered 3.14 acres and was made almost entirely of glass and steel. Inside, the builders created 5 distinct ecosystems. There was a miniature ocean with real coral reefs. There was a tropical rainforest with trees and vines and waterfalls. There was a mangrove wetland, a savanna, and a desert. Each ecosystem was designed to function on its own, but also to connect with the others, just like ecosystems do on the real Earth. In 1991, 8 people walked into Biosphere 2 and sealed the doors behind them. They agreed to stay inside for 2 full years. They would grow their own food, recycle their own water, and breathe air that was produced by the plants inside the structure. Nothing would come in from the outside. Nothing would go out. It would be a completely closed system, a tiny planet inside a glass box. The experiment ran into problems almost immediately. The oxygen levels inside the structure began to drop. Microbes in the soil were consuming oxygen faster than the plants could produce it. Oxygen fell from 21% to 14%, which is the equivalent of living at an altitude of 13,000 feet. The crew started to feel tired and short of breath. Eventually, oxygen had to be pumped in from the outside to keep them healthy. Some species inside the biosphere did not survive. Many of the pollinating insects died, which meant the plants could not reproduce on their own. The crew had to pollinate some crops by hand using tiny brushes. And living together in a closed space for 2 years put enormous strain on the group. Food became a source of stress and conflict. But the 8 people inside did manage to grow most of what they ate, and they completed the full 2-year experiment. Some scientists called it a failure because the closed system did not stay closed. Others called it one of the boldest experiments ever attempted. America built a miniature planet in the desert more than 30 years ago, and no other country has attempted anything like it since. Biosphere 2 is still standing today, operated by the University of Arizona for climate research. Glass and steel were one way to push limits. The next project asked a completely different question: what if a building could see, hear, and speak? The giant eye that watches the desert. In 2023, a building opened in Las Vegas that looked like nothing anyone had ever seen before. If you drive down the highway past the casinos and hotels, you will suddenly see something rising out of the desert floor that makes you question your own eyes. It is a sphere, a perfectly round, completely smooth, glowing sphere sitting in the middle of the Nevada desert, pulsing with light and color. It is called the Sphere, and it is the largest spherical building in the world. It stands 366 feet tall and 516 feet wide. It is tall enough to hold a 30-story building inside it. The exterior is covered with more than 580,000 LED lights, and those lights can display anything you can think of. The sphere can look like a giant eyeball staring at you. It can look like a planet floating in the sky. It can show live sports games, movies, or abstract art. At night, you can see it from airplanes flying over Las Vegas. It is, by a wide margin, the largest outdoor screen on the planet. But the outside is only half the story. Inside the sphere, there is an entertainment venue that seats roughly 20,000 people. And surrounding those seats is the largest indoor screen ever built. It wraps around the audience in every direction, covering the walls and the ceiling. The screen has such high resolution and covers so much of your field of vision that when you watch something on it, your brain has trouble telling the difference between what is real and what is on the screen. People who have attended events there describe the experience as being inside the performance rather than watching it from the outside. The sound system is equally remarkable. It uses more than 160,000 speakers embedded in the walls, and the system can direct sound so precisely that 2 people sitting next to each other can hear completely different things. The technology was developed specifically for this building, and it does not exist anywhere else. The sphere cost more than $2.3 billion to build. It took years of research just to figure out how to make a building that shape and that size structurally sound. A sphere is not an easy shape to build. Wind pushes against it differently than it does against a flat wall. The weight of the LED panels had to be calculated and distributed with extreme precision. It is not a bigger version of an existing idea. It is an entirely new category of building, and America built it first. As remarkable as the sphere is, though, it was still just a preview. The project that would truly make the rest of the world feel 100 years behind was not a spectacle for entertainment. It was a factory. A factory unlike anything ever built. In Austin, Texas, there is a building so large that you cannot see the other end of it when you stand inside. It stretches so far in every direction that workers use bicycles to get from one area to another. The ceiling is so high that you could stack 10 shipping containers on top of each other and still have room left over. It is called Giga Texas, and it is one of the largest buildings ever constructed by human beings. The numbers are hard to wrap your mind around. Giga Texas has more than 10 million square feet of floor space under a single roof. To understand what that means, think about the Pentagon. The Pentagon is the largest office building in the world, with nearly 6.5 million square feet. Giga Texas is so big that the Pentagon could fit inside it 3 times, and there would still be room to spare. If you walked from one end to the other at a normal pace, it would take you more than 20 minutes. But size alone is not what makes Giga Texas special. What makes it special is what happens inside it. Instead of having 50 different factories in 50 different locations, each making one small part and shipping it to the next, Giga Texas does almost everything under one roof. Raw materials come in through one set of doors. Robots and machines stamp, cut, weld, and shape those materials into car bodies. Other machines build the batteries that power those cars. Other lines produce solar panels and solar roof tiles. And at the far end of the building, finished vehicles roll off the line, fully assembled, tested, and ready to drive. When everything is under one roof, you can change a design in the morning and see the result on the production line by the afternoon. Every hour that passes, completed electric vehicles drive out of the doors of Giga Texas. Every day, the building gets bigger. New sections are being added. New production lines are being installed. It is like a living thing that keeps growing. The technology inside is unlike anything in traditional car manufacturing. Thousands of robots work alongside human technicians. Some of these robots are the size of a house. They lift entire car bodies and move them through the air with precision, measured in fractions of a millimeter. The entire operation is connected by a software system that tracks every single part, every single vehicle, and every single step of the process in real time. Giga Texas officially opened in 2022, and it represents a fundamental shift in how things can be built. It makes cars, batteries, and energy products all in the same building at the same time. It is not just a factory. It is an attempt to rethink the entire idea of manufacturing from the ground up. Why the world is 100 years behind. Most of the world is still building things the way they were built 100 years ago. Separate factories for separate parts. Long supply chains that stretch across oceans. Months of waiting between a design change and a finished product. That is how manufacturing has worked for a century, and in much of the world it still works that way today. Giga Texas throws all of that out the window. It brings everything together under one roof. It connects every step of the process with software. It uses robots that are more precise than any human could be. It changes designs in hours instead of months. And it does all of this while building vehicles that produce zero emissions. When engineers and manufacturing experts from other countries visit Giga Texas, they often describe the experience the same way. They say it feels like stepping into the future. The factories in their own countries, even the newest and most advanced ones, suddenly look like relics from another era. The gap between what Giga Texas is doing and what everyone else is doing is not a gap of a few years. It feels like a gap of a century. If you took a factory from the 1920s and put it next to a modern factory, you would see a big difference. The old factory would be slower, but the basic idea would be the same. Parts come in, workers assemble them, products go out. Giga Texas is different. It is not just a better version of an old factory. It integrates manufacturing, energy production, and software into a single system. It is designed to expand, to adapt, and to improve continuously. It is less like a traditional factory and more like an organism that grows and evolves over time. Countries like China, Germany, and Japan are building advanced factories of their own. But Giga Texas set a new standard. America, which had watched much of its manufacturing move overseas, suddenly built the most advanced factory on the planet. That is why people say the world is 100 years behind. It is not a literal number. It is the sense you get when you walk into a building that does not just improve on what came before, but redefines what is possible. If you enjoyed this look at the most incredible construction projects in America, hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next one. There are related videos on the screen right now if you want to keep watching. So here is a question for you. If you could visit any one of these projects in person and see how it works from the inside, which one would you choose and why? Let me know in the comments.